I am a 35-year-old male, and I was married to my ex-wife Emily, who was 30, for 4 years before our relationship soured. Emily and I first met at a bar where she worked as a bartender. My friends and I frequently visited the bar, and from the first day I saw Emily, I knew I liked her. She had an unmissable charm that set her apart from her colleagues. For weeks, I continued to go to the bar without saying anything to Emily or telling her how I felt about her. One evening, while we were at the bar, Emily was serving at a table next to us when a man made some uncomfortable gestures towards her, leaving her embarrassed. I stood up for her and asked the man to apologize to Emily. A few others who noticed it joined me in reprimanding that man. Soon, the security officials of the bar intervened and removed the man from the bar. Later that evening, Emily and her boss came to our table with a complimentary drink to thank us. I continued to visit that bar, and we soon became friends. From being bar friends, I asked her out on a date, and she agreed. Emily and I ended up dating for 1 year before we got married. A few months before our marriage, I got Emily a better job so she would no longer have to work at the bar. I did this because even while we were dating, I still went to the bar with her. And I hated seeing how she was treated by other men there. I was uncomfortable with the men staring at her and checking her out. So with the help of some friends, I got her a job as a waitress in a fancy restaurant. Emily could not find a well-paying job due to her educational qualifications. She had completed high school and tried community college for a year, but she couldn't continue because she couldn't afford to support herself, so she had to take a break and work. On my end, I worked as an assistant lecturer at the university where I was pursuing my master's degree. Because I loved Emily so much, her educational background did not matter to me. I had even secretly saved money for her college education and planned to tell her when the amount was enough. Apart from Emily not attending college, she was street smart, hardworking, and open-minded. She was always willing to try new things and was eager to learn. Her open-mindedness and eagerness to learn were the qualities I loved most about her. During the first 2 years of our marriage, we were happy and enjoyed each other's company immensely, but there was something that bothered me from time to time. At the beginning of our marriage, I wasn't concerned about it, but after 3 years and Emily's inability to conceive, I became very worried. While we were dating, Emily and I had discussed the issue, and we were both prepared for the possibility of not being able to have children. We discussed the number of children we wanted, and even had their names picked out in advance. We had both agreed on having 2 kids regardless of their gender. What mattered most was that we would have our first child within the first or second year of our marriage, and then have our second child a few years later. It was a perfect plan, and I was excited for it. I had envisioned a scenario where our first child would be at least 14 years old when I turned 50, and our second child would be either 10 or 8. However, as the first 2 years of our marriage passed and we approached the end of the 3rd year, Emily still had not conceived. She knew how much I wanted children and was on board with our plan, but at times she gave me mixed signals about starting a family. We went through a series of tests, took medication, and did fertility tests. All the results showed that we were both physically healthy, but I couldn't understand why Emily couldn't get pregnant. I even doubted the results from one hospital and had us tested at different hospitals, but the results were all the same. As our 3rd year of marriage came to an end and we still didn't have a child, I started to feel weighed down. I had experienced disappointment in other areas of my life, but I never thought I would also be disappointed in the area of having children. By the 3rd year of our marriage, the bond between Emily and I was slowly fading. We no longer spent as much time together as we used to, and things had changed between us. I couldn't even have a long conversation with her without bringing up our plans for when we had a child, which was a turnoff for Emily. She started to complain that I was too focused on the future and not living in the present. Shortly after celebrating our 3rd anniversary, I realized how distant we had become. I promised Emily that we would work on getting back to the couple we used to be, and I would no longer stress about having children. I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to grow with Emily. She was content and reminded me that God is the one who blesses us with children when the time is right. As Christians, we both believed that God is the giver of all good things, including children, and we trusted that He would bless us with kids when the time was right. I also reminded myself that not having children did not make our marriage any less complete. With this new mindset, I stopped worrying about having kids and focused on finding new ways to strengthen our marriage and enjoy life with Emily. It no longer mattered to me if we had children in the future or not. I even considered the possibility of adopting a child later on if Emily was unable to conceive. Meanwhile, by the 3rd year of our marriage, Emily had already started her 4-year college program. She was in her 1st year, and I was supporting her financially. I had set aside money for her. She was doing well, and I was happy that she could finally attend college as she had always wanted. As time went on, our marriage slowly returned to its previous state. The only difference was that Emily and I were not as close as we used to be, due to our busy schedules. If she wasn't studying late at night, she would come home late from work, and I was equally busy. I knew that there would come a time when we would both be busy, and I didn't make a fuss about it. I did my best to be a supportive husband. If I came home early, I would make dinner for us, take out the trash, clean the house, and do other things to help relieve her stress. On weekends, I would let her rest while I took care of household chores such as cleaning, grocery shopping, laundry, and cooking. In the evenings, we would go out and have fun or drive around the city. A few months after I stopped talking about having children or mentioning them in our conversations, I noticed that Emily still went to appointments with her gynecologist. She visited him at least once a week, which was more often than before. I wanted to ask her about it, but I knew why she was seeing her gynecologist, and it would be insensitive of me to ask, so I refrained. I believed that she wanted to take things at her own pace, and there was nothing wrong with her continuing to see her gynecologist. In fact, I was impressed that she didn't stop seeing him, even though we had stopped discussing having children, as it brought us closer together. In the early days of our marriage, we were intimate 2 or 3 times a week. But after our attempts to conceive failed, we would go a whole week without being intimate. However, after Emily became more serious with her gynecologist, we would be intimate at least once or twice a week, usually on the days she returned from her appointments. I was always happy when this happened because I believed her gynecologist had advised her to come to me, or maybe there was something she wanted to try out. For once, I didn't question her, and I made myself available to her whenever she wanted. In addition to thinking that Emily wanted to have children, our increased intimacy helped strengthen our bond and improve our relationship. This continued for months. The more intimate we became, the more hopeful I became about having a child, even though I never mentioned it to her. I hoped that one day she would come to me with excitement and tell me she was pregnant, but that never happened. Looking back, I am glad it never happened. If I had not discovered the truth at the right time, I would be raising another man's child now. Throughout the months that Emily had been seeing her gynecologist, I never knew she was cheating on me and having an affair with the same gynecologist I respected. He was in his late 40s, and I was even thinking of paying him a visit to thank him for consistently standing by Emily. He was referred by one of her aunts who had trouble conceiving for years, and with the help of a gynecologist, she finally became pregnant and gave birth. 2 weeks ago, I discovered something suspicious. I was in the bedroom, struggling to fall asleep that evening. I was exhausted from work all day and couldn't even make dinner or do my usual tasks. I went straight to our bedroom, took off my clothes and shoes, and climbed into bed. Before Emily returned home, I had already fallen asleep, but the sound of her car pulling into the driveway woke me up. I was fully awake, but I kept my eyes closed as Emily entered the room. I'm guessing she thought I was asleep, so she continued talking on the phone. As she hung up, she said, "I love you, see you tomorrow after work." I froze in bed and wondered who she was talking to. I knew it wasn't any of her siblings or parents because Emily didn't express her emotions like that. I stayed in bed while she made dinner, and about 35 minutes later, I got up and pretended to have just woken up. I knew Emily was smart, so I had to stay in the room for a while, so she wouldn't suspect that I had heard her conversation. My plan was to wait for her to fall asleep and then check her phone to see who she was talking to. Honestly, I didn't care if she was talking to her best friend or another woman. I just wanted to make sure she wasn't cheating on me or hiding anything from me. Later that night, after Emily had fallen asleep and was snoring, I checked her phone. The last number she had called was her gynecologist. I didn't want to believe it when I saw it, so I went through her text messages and WhatsApp chat. She wasn't very active on social media, and the only app she had was WhatsApp. As I went through her messages, I noticed that she talked more with her gynecologist than she did with me. In fact, we barely talked at all. Our WhatsApp conversations were mostly just grocery lists. We used the app to list the items we needed at home so that either of us could stop and buy them on our way back from work. I went through their chat from the beginning to see the timeline of their relationship. I even went to the living room to reread the messages. I still can't believe that Emily had been cheating on me for almost 7 months. I didn't know what to do or say. I was so angry at Emily for ruining everything we had worked for. She wasn't even afraid that I would stop sponsoring her college education because of her infidelity. After I finished crying and washing my swollen red eyes, I took screenshots of their conversation from when they started dating and sent them to my phone. Then I cleared every trace that I touched her phone. I spent the rest of the night reading countless stories from the Reddit community who had encountered similar situations. The following morning, when she woke up, she asked me why my eyes were so swollen. I told her I was watching a very emotional movie all night and ended up crying. She just laughed at me and didn't say anything else. She didn't know I knew, and I didn't act like anything else was off. Even with all I had seen on her phone, I still wanted to see with my eyes that Emily was cheating on me with her gynecologist. So that evening, I left work early, drove to the fancy restaurant she worked at, and parked 2 houses away from the restaurant. I knew she didn't have classes that day because she told me before she left the house in the morning. Around 7 p.m., Emily finished her shift, and I watched as she got out of the restaurant and entered her car. She drove off immediately, and I tailed her to the hospital. I waited for her to park in the hospital's parking lot and go into the hospital. Once she was in, I parked too and waited for a few minutes before entering the hospital. It turned out that she had an appointment booked with her gynecologist. I had to tell the receptionist that I was Emily's husband. I lied and said that she had left her phone in the car and I wanted to give it to her before leaving. It was the only intelligent and believable lie I could come up with, so the receptionist instructed me to the gynecologist's office, and in no time, I was there. I knew what was going on between Emily and her gynecologist, and I knew our marriage would never be the same after that day. So before I confronted them, I turned on my phone's video recorder, and without making a sound or knocking, I opened the door and walked in. As I had expected, Emily was lying on one of those long chairs that had been adjusted down, and she and her gynecologist were engaging in sexual activity during hospital hours. I made sure to record it so that she or the judge couldn't dismiss my case, saying that it was an examination or something, because a gynecologist does access private parts. As soon as I opened the door, Emily saw that it was me. Her face turned pale and she pushed the gynecologist away. The gynecologist was scared and confused at the same time, and when Emily told him I was her husband, he froze. I didn't make a scene or yell, I just stood by the entrance of his office, recorded the video, and walked out. Their reaction confirmed that there wasn't any examination going on, but a deceitful affair. Emily ran after me half naked. When I got into the elevator, taking me to the ground floor, she stood there and begged me to listen to her. Her voice was so loud, and people were already coming out of their rooms and offices to see what was happening. I had to fake a smile with the secretary on my way out, and I drove home. When I got home, I texted her and told her not to bother coming home. And that was it. I changed the locks of my house. For 2 weeks, Emily has not come home. But she has been blowing my phone with calls and messages. I did that because I wanted to clear my head. Apart from posting this here, I haven't told anyone about her cheating yet, and it's eating me up from the inside. I have decided that I do not want our marriage again, but before we divorce, I want to punish her and let her feel the pain she put me through. I'm so confused right now and I don't know what to do. Any suggestions would be appreciated. Now for the first update. Hello everyone. Thank you for your comments and for your suggestions. I'm still shocked that Emily could do this to me after everything I did for her. Emily was always my priority, and I put her needs before mine. I should have taken so many expensive courses to help improve myself, but I didn't take them because I wanted Emily to attend college. I pushed all my savings to sponsor her. I'm still deeply hurt, and I don't think I'll ever get over the pain she has caused me. So someone here commented that I should play with her a bit and make her publicly humiliate herself before I serve her the divorce papers. I think it's the best thing to do, and I have also decided to withdraw all my support from her education. If she wants, she can continue college with her own earnings. It's not my business anymore. 3 days ago, I took Emily's call after weeks of not talking to her. When I did, she started crying on the phone and pleaded with me to at least let her come home so that we could talk. I knew she would ask for this, so I told her to come over. She came over 15 minutes after we ended the call, and I let her in. I didn't want it to look like I was pretending, so I expressed my feelings and disappointment calmly, and she went to her knees and apologized to me. She said that she didn't know what came over her and that it would never happen again. She even promised to stop seeing any gynecologist alone if I gave her a second chance. She said that the gynecologist had manipulated her into all these things by saying that I was impotent and she had to take his help to get pregnant. I questioned her why she didn't discuss this with me when the gynecologist first planted this idea into her mind. She said the doctor had told her not to tell me because it would hurt my male ego. A part of me wanted to believe her, but I also knew that she was not that naive to fall for such a trap. I'll admit that I cried again that day. Seeing her brought back the pain I had experienced. That day, when I caught her in the act, she begged for forgiveness. I told her I would only forgive her and take her back if she confessed her cheating to both of our parents and explained how I caught her. When she heard that, she paused and looked at me for a while before starting to cry again. She asked if there was no other way, and I told her that it had to be the only way. I thought she would say no, but she didn't. She said she would do anything to restore our relationship. We have picked a date to go to her parents' house and my parents' house for dinner. After that, we will gather all of her important friends, and she will tell them herself how much of a horrible wife she has been. This is the best way to punish her for what she did to me. I will make another update soon, and I cannot wait to see the expression on her face when I serve her the divorce papers. I have already contacted a lawyer, and he is currently processing them. Now for the final update. Hello everyone. I am pleased to announce that Emily did everything we agreed on. But before I tell you how it happened, Emily and I are officially divorced. Yes, I followed the plan, and she got what she deserved. As for Emily openly confessing to everyone, we first went to her parents' house for dinner. They were happy to receive us, but could also sense that something was wrong with Emily. She looked miserable, and anyone who saw her could easily tell that all was not well. While we were in the middle of dinner, Emily announced to her parents and siblings who were at home that she wanted to tell them something, and everyone became alert. Well, suddenly she started crying, and in a teary voice, she told her parents that she was cheating on me with her gynecologist, and I caught her. Her parents and siblings were shocked when she said that, and they were nearly choked. They all turned to me, but I kept a straight face and continued to eat. Her father was the only one who started yelling at her, and the rest of the family could not utter a word. The more her father yelled at her, the more she cried. After I finished eating, we left together. No one said anything. It was so awkward. I'm sure her parents were shocked to see that both of us came and left together. The next day, we went to my parents' house, and Emily told them the same thing. My parents could not believe it. They knew Emily to be calm and reserved, and she did not seem like someone who would do such a thing. They were disappointed, but they left the decision to me. After we met both of our parents, I was satisfied with the results. I could tell that her parents were disappointed in her, from the looks on their faces and their expressions. On our way back from my parents' house, I dropped her off at the motel where she was staying after I discovered her cheating. She was told to come home the next morning. When she arrived at the house the following day, she was shocked to see her belongings neatly packed on the front porch. She had expected us to start our life together again, poor thing. As she entered, I handed her the divorce papers and she began to cry. I explained that our relationship was over and that my only intention was to teach her a lesson. In that moment, she became angry and started yelling at me for ruining her life. She even claimed that she had been doing me a favor by sleeping with her gynecologist because she knew I was infertile. However, the joke was on her because I was not infertile. In a fit of spite, I asked her why she had not conceived yet since she was supposedly so fertile, which only angered her more. She began throwing things at me, and I angrily kicked her out of my house. We officially divorced a week later. I then sought out the gynecologist who had slept with Emily and sent screenshots and videos to the hospital authority. I also posted about the incident on social media, mentioning the doctor and the hospital by name. This did not bode well for the hospital administration, as the doctor was suspended for engaging in a relationship with a patient during hospital hours. Emily could not even return to him, as his marriage and career were ruined because of her. I now feel fulfilled, and I cannot thank you all enough for your suggestions. Thank you once again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care.